everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, AJ PARR. Hi, AJ.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so excited to learn so much from you. There's so many things that I want to ask questions about. But first, how did you get involved in writing as a journalist and writing in multiple languages? How did you get involved in the paranormal or the supernatural? Do you want to share a little bit about your journey?
Yes, well, I basically have had mystical experiences since I was a kid. Um, I actually had uh, lucid dreams. When I was a kid, I used to have a lot of nightmares. So I had a recurring nightmare, and this was I found myself at the top of a building. The building was under construction. So each time I had this nightmare, I would look down and freeze. It was really scary. And one time I had this nightmare, and I realized I was 7 years old. And when I looked down, I said, "Hey, this is exactly what's going on every time I have this nightmare. Can it be that I'm dreaming right now and that this is a nightmare?" And I realized I was actually dreaming. So once I became conscious that I was dreaming, I simply jumped from the top of the building because I knew it was a dream. Nothing was going to happen to me. And I learned after this how to wake up. Sometimes I could transform the dreams. Other times I couldn't. And when it was too scary, I learned how to wake up. I realized I was dreaming. So I concentrated. It was really hard because my body was totally asleep. But if I concentrated enough, I could wake up. So that was a technique I used in order to escape from nightmares. And I did this throughout the rest of my childhood and also in my teens. And slowly, I began to have like mystical experiences in dreams in which I realized that I was sleeping. So this came together with with the fact that I learned how to meditate when I was 16 years old. And when I was meditating, I would suddenly find myself somewhere else, or I would have experiences like dreams within the meditation. So I had an interest in religions and spirituality ever since I was around 16, 17 years old. And I had a quest that lasted for many years. When I turned 34, I had a discussion with God because I always thought that that someday I would be enlightened. I would have this super mystical experience. And when I turned 33, I said, "Okay, Jesus died when he was 33. This must be the year." So what happened was that the year went by and nothing unusual happened. So when I turned 34, I had a discussion with God. I told him, "Look, I turned 34 and I didn't have this super mystical experience. I am not enlightened. So I'm sick and tired of studying religions, of looking for you. So I quit. I will not continue searching for spirituality or searching for the enlightenment, okay, or self-realizations. There are many ways of explaining it, but what I wanted was a super mystical experience or a paranormal experience. So after this, 2 weeks went by, and all of a sudden, I found myself in the middle of the night. I woke up, and when I looked around, it was pitch dark. I could not see anything. So I raised my hands, placed them before my eyes, and I could not see them.
Wow.
So it was so dark, I could not see anything. So I said, maybe this is a dream. By then I knew that dreams are all sometimes, we can have two different types of dreams: normal dreams or mystical dreams. So I said, okay, maybe this is a nightmare or a dream. So I concentrated and I woke up. I woke up with a long breath. I inhaled, and I said, wow, what was this? So I could not understand it. The next day, it happened again. So it was really strange. I woke up in this completely dark place, but I sensed that there was a presence in the darkness.
Mhm.
This was very scary. I did not know if it was my imagination or not. But once again, I concentrated and I woke up. The following day, it happened for the third time.
Wow.
So I found myself in this pitch dark blackness, raised my hands, could not see anything, and I sensed a presence in the darkness. And I was wondering if I was imagining it or not when I heard a voice. So I was right. There was a presence, there was someone there, and it said, surrender, all is one. So I was very scared at the time. And you know that when you're scared, you feel like an emptiness in your chest, an empty feeling in your chest. Just like when you jump or you go in the car, go over a bump, there's like an expansion of emptiness in the chest. And I don't know why, when I heard all is one, I relaxed. However, my chest continued to expand. And I said, wait, this is just like getting even more scared, but I'm not. I'm relaxing. And I realized that the sensation in my chest did not belong to the sensation of being scared. This was something else. So I felt this empty space within me growing and growing and growing. And it grew so much that I was no longer in my body. I was in that empty space within the darkness. And it grew and grew and grew until it exploded. And suddenly I found myself in what seemed to be a star, an infinite star, emanating light in all directions. And I could see up, down, to the right, to the left, in all directions at the same time. I had no body. Since I could see up and down, there was nothing in the middle but empty space. It was the feeling, the same feeling that I had in my chest in the middle of this star, which was pure light. And I could focus on each ray of light that emanated from this central place. And I could focus also on the center, on the middle, or in any directions. And I could see that particular space, but I could still see the rest. So I had the impression that I was one with everything. I had the impression that everything was one and that one was everything. So I later found out that they call this the a oneness experience. However, I did not at the while I was experiencing this, I had no thoughts. I did not think. I did not even remember that I was human. I don't know how long that lasted because it's really hard to explain, hard to describe, or impossible to describe. So when I, let's say, woke up, I found myself in my bed, and I said, "Wow!" I had this fresh memory of the place where I had just been, and I said, "Wow, what was this? This is impossible. I mean, it's impossible to see in all directions at the same time." But when I woke up, I felt that I was one with everything. So I looked around and I felt that I was my body, yes, but I was also everything that surrounded me. So when I got up, I went to the nearest wall and pressed my hand against the wall. When I pressed my hand against the wall, I could feel that I was pressing my hand against the wall, but I could also feel the wall pressing back. I was the wall pressing back as well. So I had like double consciousness. And when I had this double sensation or double consciousness, I realized that I I was not only myself, but I was also everything that surrounded me. This lasted for a few days. This gradually decreased, and once it decreased, I I asked God what happened. I could not understand it. I mean, I didn't know about anything similar. So I had this download, and the download said, it gave me an explanation. All of a sudden, I realized, or I heard like a small poem that contained the explanation of what had just happened. And it was brief. I will recite it right now. In the beginning was the one, but the one was alone and he wanted to play. So he divided himself into two and gave number two amnesia, and thus the game began.
Mhm.
So this explanation not only explained that we are all one, but it also explained that we are that oneness turned into an individual, but we have amnesia. We have forgotten our origins. And our quest, our mission is to remember who we are. So this was also the origin of the universe, the Genesis story. And it involved so many things that I really wanted to understand what had just happened. And I started studying the ancient scriptures. And I found not only in the Bible, but also in the Hindu texts and the Chinese texts that this is the common root of all religions, oneness.
Mhm.
All religions say that this world is an illusion. And it surely is, because if we are really one, if we are all one, if there's only one consciousness in the universe, then this sensation of being an individual is obviously an illusion. And that's what Jesus talked about. You know, he differentiated the heaven from this world. And people talk about the ego and 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 duality and non-duality. So the real world, according to ancient scriptures, is non-dual.
Right. Right.
We think that this world is dual. It has good and bad, tall and short, big and small. But in reality, those are all illusions. So I found myself studying Zen Buddhism. And Zen Buddhism is based on the idea that whatever you think is false. Whatever you put into words is false. And that's basically what the Chinese Taoists say. For example, when you talk about God, it's merely a word. So the Chinese say the Tao, the God, the Tao that you mention is not really the Tao. So, translating this into Christian terms is the God that you mention is not really God.
Right. Right.
And when you come to think of it, when you talk about water, the water that you mention is not really water. If someone has never tried chocolate, how you can say, yeah, it tastes like chocolate, but if someone hasn't tasted it, he will not understand. And no matter how you try to describe it, you will not be able to communicate. So life cannot be communicated. Our experiences cannot be communicated. If I say man, woman, justice, freedom, those are abstract terms.
Right.
They really don't mean anything. But we have agreed to give them a meaning. And we all agree that, for example, the color green or color red, yeah, we can have a mental image, but how can you explain that to a blind person? So words in themselves are meaningless, they are hollow. And the same goes for every spiritual teaching,
Yeah.
every scripture. every explanation, every scientific theory is just an attempt to describe something that is really undescribable.
Exactly.
So after I found this, I started I joined different religions, hoping to find other people who had had similar experiences, at least a oneness experience. And I couldn't. Everyone said, when I joined, for example, I joined the Buddhists, the Hinduists, the Freemasons, the Gnostics, and everyone said, look, we have not experienced what you experienced, but if you join us and dedicate to our teaching, you will one day find out what happened. And I started believing in all religions, so I did not want to focus on one single religion. I wanted to learn from all of them. So after several decades of studying, I decided to start writing about different religions. Without mentioning my experience, I started writing about what I call, well, what is known as comparative study of religions.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote different books, many books about many different religions until 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I met a Spanish journalist who had had a near-death experience. And she, when I told her, we started working together. And when I told her about my experience, she said, yes, I was also in that dark place. It is known as the void. I said, yeah? And what about the light? And she said, well, I also merged with the light. And I could also see in all directions. That's what's known as 360-degree vision. I said, wow. And she said, look, you probably had a near-death experience. At the time I had my experience, I had suffered from asthma all my life. And I also suffered from sleep apnea. So I may have stopped breathing. And I remember when I came back, I took a long breath. So I could have stopped breathing and I could have had a near-death experience. But since I'm not too sure, I call it a near-death-like experience. Okay?
Well, I don't want to interrupt,
No, I think I'm done.
but I had many spiritually transformative experiences, and
Yes.
they were very similar to that. So you can have a profound, life-altering view of this reality that I had one 20 years ago that I still wake up every morning thinking about it.
Oh,
Every morning. Yep. Because it was so out of this reality and so affected how I thought about this reality. So anyway, but that's where you and I both got so interested with the near-death experience group. I've been a volunteer for IONS for 7 years, and you're involved, you're teaching and everything and helping. In fact, Ishtar wrote on it, lovely fellow inspires me to finish my own books. Is that sweet? And
oh wow.
Tristan wrote, Grand Rising, beautiful soul fam. So is that sweet? So, but AJ, your experience, what I love about it is your curious mind. You didn't just sort of, a lot of people have these experiences and it's just too overwhelming to try to understand it. So they just kind of file it away until something triggers it again. Or I think your subconscious tries to protect you if it's
Right.
too much of a shock, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But we're lucky we didn't have to have a near-death experience where a lot of the people that we know had terribly, they really hurt their physical body and will have a lifetime of pain from it to have the experience. And many of them had multiple near-death experiences where they were in car accidents. Peter Panagore froze to death, and then later on in life he had a heart issue. So he's had
Right.
two. I mean, so many of these people, it's like, wow. But the articulation gets it from your heart because it's a feeling, right, AJ? It's a feeling. It's an overwhelming emotional experience that is so hard to express.
Right. That's why they have this term ineffable. It means
Yes.
that it cannot be described or explained or even imagined.
Well, so I love. Okay, so tell me, do you so you live in the U.S., right?
I live in Colombia, South
Oh, you
America.
do. Okay. Oh,
Yes.
so okay. So how did you find ions then, or how did that? Someone came to you that
Okay.
wanted to
So
publish a book.
no, let me explain.
Okay.
I started in 2011. In 2011, I since I was publishing books, decided to offer my services to self-publishers interested in publishing in Amazon. And at the time, I started publishing different types of books. And this journalist, the Spanish journalist that I mentioned, Tessa Romero, she published her NDE book with me. And
Ah,
that's how I met her. And then we started working together. And but I was not interested in telling my story to anyone.
I
I did not dare. So I met Dr. Yvonne Kayson over 2 years ago, and she asked me after I interviewed her. I decided to open a YouTube channel and start interviewing people who had near-death experiences in order to study this phenomenon better. And I interviewed Dr. Yvonne Kaysen, who has had 5 near-death experiences. And when I finished interviewing her, she asked me if I had ever had a spiritually transformative experience. I did not. It was the first time I heard that term. I thought she was asking me if I had ever had a spiritual experience. So I said, "Yeah, are you interested in hearing it?" And she said, "Yeah, well, why don't you come over into a sharing group?" And I started sharing my story privately in the Spiritual Awakenings International sharing groups. And after that, I started going to the IANS sharing groups.
see.
And I started sharing my story until they gave me an opportunity at Spiritual Awakenings International to present my story as a speaker, as a monthly speaker in a monthly speaker event. And it was the first time I shared my story publicly. Since
Wow.
then, I have continued to share it, and I have been helping other near-death experiencers publish their books. I also teach them how to write their books, and I recently gave at IANS, I gave a workshop on how to write your NDE or STE book with 7 basic guidelines. I gave that webinar with Paul Perry, who is the co-author of Dr. Raymond Moody, and also Dr. Melvin Morse. So I became, thanks to my YouTube channel, in which I have interviewed a lot of people, I actually ended up working with Paul Perry and with Dr. Melvin Morse. And I belong now as a consciousness researcher. I am part of the Institute for the Scientific Study of Consciousness. And Dr. Raymond Moody is part of the staff.
Wow.
So
Cool.
I actually changed my life. And now I consider myself a journalistic near-death NDE researcher. And we've been doing some research on mediumship. I really love what I'm doing now. So my conclusion was I don't have to look for the answer in religions. I have to look for the answer in near-death experiences, and in spirituality.
I understand. Yes, well, everyone has a different peep into the forgetfulness, as you said before, that God made the other and said, "You will forget."
Yeah,
All of us get an opportunity to remember, um, and hopefully it's not too overwhelming. That's why I love the experiencer groups and the reading. I've read so many near-death experiencer books because I wanted to be able to articulate the expression of, because it's all heart to me. It's not head. And that's where it's hard as a researcher to combine the two. You've had an experience, so as a researcher, you're very valuable, at least for ions, because a lot of the researchers have not had experiences, and it's a little more cut and dry. So, but we do have Zach Bergen wrote, "I wouldn't think that NDE necessarily results in a difficult physical experience. There are so many factors when we embody. It's possible that the NDE allows people, in combination with their new awareness, to navigate something in the physical from a new standpoint." Yep. "And therefore learn that lesson. Anyway, along for the ride here for a bit. Thank you. Kudos to PARR." So this is a friend of mine. And he
thank
also wrote one more thing. "Also, life death is a near-death experience, a bet at a slightly different time scale. After all, I have memory from before this life, and an ND would not necessarily in terms of awareness. I think it would be globally accepted now, yet I suppose an atheist would have a mental set that blocks this knowledge." Thanks, Zach. Oh, well,
well, thank
he's a
you.
researcher. Yeah, cosmic here. So AJ, when you are teaching people, that, at least in my experience, when I've met the experiencers, whether it's been spiritually transformative or near-death experiencers, they come back very courageous. They come back knowing something bigger, and maybe some of them 40 years ago when I started might have been reticent to talk about it, but now there's enough other people around that they come back full force. I mean, almost with their superpowers. And so I'm excited to hear how you help people, that because they're already in their knowing. So like Ishtar, he's a beautiful man. He said you're inspiring him to finish his book. How do you help people? Because this is a big reveal. It's one thing to talk in a little experiencer group, and it's another thing to publish your first book, which is your baby.
Right.
Right. So how do you help people through that?
Well, I have a technique that is basically a manifesting technique. You know, like The Secret. First, you have to see the book in your mind, and it's more or less like a movie. First, you have to imagine your book. So I help the author imagine it. I ask them a series of psychological questions, like, why do you want to write this book?
Mhm.
What for? Who are you addressing your book to?
Okay.
And a series of other questions to more or less create an idea of what the book is before defining it in detail. Once we go over these questions, we try to write in a single paragraph or maybe two what the book will be about before defining it. So, and before sitting down and starting to write it. After we do this, we come up with a tentative title. The title, when you begin to write a book, the title is not necessarily the same as it will be when you finish writing the book.
Exactly.
We
Yep.
always change our minds, or since it's a process, it's a learning process. So by the time we finish the book, we have a clearer understanding of what the book is about. But when we begin to write a book, we have a vague idea. It's like when a painter is going to start a painting, and he says, "Well, I'm gonna paint an angel." He more or less has the idea, but he doesn't know what it's going to look like.
Yep.
So I have certain techniques in which the author comes in contact with his subconscious, and I teach them how to write and reach the state of flow. That is when you're writing and you are not intellectually directing your hand. The hand seems to write by itself. It's not automatic writing, but it is giving uh, maximum freedom for your creativity. It's like when a musician is playing or improvising. When a musician is improvising, he's not thinking, "I'm going to play this note and this other." No, for example, a guitar. When you're improvising in a guitar, your hands are moving on their own. This is flowing from you. A painter who is inspired, when he's painting, he's not saying, "I'm gonna paint a line." No, he just goes ahead and paints the line without thinking. So you enter the state. It's almost a state of trance. It's a state of deep meditation in which your thoughts are minimized, and therefore you begin to flow. It can be applied in music, sculpture, writing a book, or anything creative, even working on your garden. When you're doing it inspired, you're not really thinking, you're simply doing it. Or it can even be riding a bicycle or walking. Sometimes you simply forget that you have to think and you're simply enjoying the present moment.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you enter that state of flow, you can improvise and you can write many things that you never suspected that you could. After we have a clear understanding, a more or less clear understanding of what the book is going to be about, we come up with a tentative title. We come up with a tentative synopsis, and we come up with a tentative reader. Then it's time to think about the structure of the book.
Mhm.
Most books have a beginning, middle, and end. Depending on the book, for example, there are different types of structures. In my books, for example, this is Stairway to Heaven, 25 near-death experiences about encounters with God, Jesus, and paradise. This is a book that is structured on the 9 common elements that I found after interviewing people who had these type of encounters. So I basically structured it into 9 chapters with an introductory chapter and 2 final chapters. But the basic structure of this book are the 9 commonalities. If I were telling my story, I would not talk about 9 different things. I would talk about who I was before my experience, what was my experience all about, and who I was after my experience.
Yes. I call that a story arc.
Right, the story
Right.
arc.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm teaching a class on that coming up.
Yeah, right.
So,
and
cool.
also it is known as the hero's journey.
The hero's journey.
I
Yeah.
go
Thank you,
over
Joseph
the
Campbell.
hero's journey. So it's I cannot explain it as quickly as I would like,
Well,
but that's what I teach. So in the end, I kind of bring out from the author what he needs,
it's
and we what we do is we write down before the person sits down and begins to write the book. We write the outline,
mhm.
which is the equivalent of the index of the book. So in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, we define what we're going to cover. And then once that is defined, the author has something to work on.
Perfect,
So,
perfect. I want to show people how many books you have up on Amazon, if that's okay, so
yeah,
they
go
can
ahead.
get that gives you credibility, and that they're in Spanish as well as English, which is very impressive. Okay, so let me make sure I'm at the top of the page. I am, because you
Okay.
have tons. It's so cool. Thank you for
Well, I started
showing.
in 2011, so it's been
Yeah.
almost 15 years, 13.
Oh, this is
Those are
cool.
my most recent. My most recent books are about NDE Stairway to Heaven, which was published in January of last year, and The Girl Who Visited Heaven was published a couple of months ago.
Okay. Well, I just noticed, I think I'm in the Kindle part. Is that okay? Will it show everything?
Excuse me?
I'm in Kindle. It looks like.
No, it's okay. It will show
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Okay. So here, and you've got Eckhart Tolle. You've
Okay,
got.
that's the basic life story of Eckhart Tolle, how he discovered the
Wow.
power of now. Uh,
Wow.
Also, the spiritual teachings of Ramana Maharshi down.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. So did you do TM?
well, yeah, but Ramana Maharshi is not TM.
Oh, he isn't. Okay.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is TM. I did
Oh,
I did TM also during my quest. But Ramana Maharshi is I really liked him because he has a technique. It's called the Who Am I meditation, and it's focused on the heart.
oh,
So
beautiful.
I talked about him. There's also the Christian meditation, Zen meditation, Buddhist meditation. So I studied different types of meditations, and they are more or less the same. You need to stop your mind or minimize your mind and focus on the present moment. On focus on your heart. Focus on your inner spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it. So the
Wow,
power
you
of
are
living.
prolific. You are prolific. Look at this, you
Yeah, well,
guys.
it's been many years. Maester Eckhart, Jesus in India. It's simply a collection of different legends and stories. I did not write that off my mind. I simply, it was a research.
Right.
Uh,
Uh,
it's,
there's a documentary by Paul Davids that I
oh,
have.
yeah.
I have a DVD where he did this as well, and then Kiara Winwriter just recently wrote another book about it because he is in India, and it's fascinating. It's
Yes.
the whole thing's so fascinating. And here we go.
One of my favorite books is The Secret Teachings of Jesus. I
Oh,
explain in my words why the teachings of Jesus is basically the same as uh, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. Basically the teaching is that all this is an illusion, and that we need to, you know, discover the power of now, basically.
wow,
So
this is so fantastic. Look at you guys. You have to know that this is a tremendous opportunity to work with AJ when you see all that he's created here. I've been publishing books for other people. I've done two myself, but since 2008, and I don't have a page like this. So I'm very impressed. Very,
well,
very,
thank
very
you.
impressed.
Well, it's taken me years, and I also love to write and love to investigate, and I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, and I'm also an editor. So that's my life.
Wow. Well, so what I love about all this is that knowledge is power, and that stuff is available now everywhere. So, what do you think about AI? As
Oh,
far as now, when you put a book up on KDP, Amazon, it asks you, is this written by AI or partially or enhanced by AI assisted? AI assisted.
okay. AI is a great tool, but people are using it to write complete books, and these books are they fail. They are not interesting. Why? You can write a book about any topic if you research on the internet and start uh, combining the information you find online. For example, I could write a book about any topic, and write a book. But if I don't have any experience on the topic, if I don't have a personal point of view, it will only be like a summary.
Right.
So you will find the book will contain exactly what you can find in the internet. So the book is bound to fail.
Right.
So why do I recommend AI? I recommend AI for several reasons. One, research. If you want to find out about the history of NDE, you can quickly, instead of looking at searching for all the websites that talk about NDE, or for example, Raymond Moody. Okay, you can ask AI, who is search the internet and write me a 500-word article about who is Raymond Moody, and it will do so. Many times it will make mistakes, so we cannot blindly trust what AI does.
Right.
Another use of the AI is for proofreading, and this is really interesting because sometimes when I write something, I simply ask the ChatGPT, "Is this well written?" And it will say yes, but it could be improved doing this and that. So I actually don't like it when it rewrites what I wrote. No, because sometimes it will write something else that I didn't mean. So there are some basic uses. For example, I can write a 3-page bio of Raymond Moody, for example, and I can tell ChatGPT, turn this into a 1-page bio instead of a 3-page bio, or the other way around. I wrote this 3-page bio. Please make it 5 pages long, and it will do so. The one thing that you need to do is you need to check, because ChatGPT and all the other options of artificial intelligence, they tend to commit what is known as hallucinations. They start inventing. So you have to really double check everything that is written by AI. However, I use it all the time.
Yeah, me
Mostly
too.
for research.
Well, I think, when you're writing a press release or something like that, it's really helpful. And then there are other softwares that you can train to, like Claude. You can train it to have your voice. We call that AI persona. And yesterday I was on a call. I'm in this class for AI persona, and they were using Claude. They uploaded somebody's passbook and then asked for help writing a new book. And
Oh,
so
okay.
it had its voice. Yeah, it was fascinating. It was about an hour and a half class. And, she's still going to have to edit everything and put more of her voice in. But, to get things out there quickly, she still, I don't think you can ever just use anything
No,
as it renders, but it is amazing. It is
it is
amazing.
amazing. It is amazing. But however, I tried when I write my books. The first ones, yes, I did research on the internet, and
Sure.
I quoted ancient scriptures and all that. But my most recent books are based on my own experience. I interview people. For example, my first book, Stairway to Heaven,
Oh
basically
yeah.
people who I interviewed. And the second book, The Girl Who Visited Heaven, these are 12 cases of people that I interviewed and had childhood near-death experiences.
Well,
So I
can you
could,
talk about your newest book, the 25? I'd love to learn what I mean, because you obviously were passionate about the results that you got and wanted to share them and thought that they would help people, especially during this time period where lots of people are leaving the planet, for
right.
the people that are left, for them to have a sense of uh, a different perspective of death, right?
Yeah. Which one would you like to know more about? The
Well,
Stairway?
either you pick both, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, my first book, Stairway to Heaven, I focused on the 9 common elements of heavenly near-death experiences. Raymond Moody was the first one to uh, mention that all NDEs are different, yet they have common elements. And he names 15 different common elements that he found in the people that he studied. However, I went through what he wrote, and I decided, this is just my personal opinion, that some of these commonalities are mystical and some are not necessarily mystical. For example, one of the commonalities that he mentions is leaving your body and seeing your body from above. Although that is a common element, it's not necessarily mystical or heavenly. A lot of people have out of body experiences, and a lot of people see their body from above and have no really, they don't go through a mystical transformation. Another commonality that I did not include in my list was going through a tunnel. Yeah, you go through a tunnel, but that has nothing mystical. However, the light at the end of the tunnel, yes, that is very mystical, because this light is described as pure love, pure wisdom, pure peace, and a lot of people call it home. So my first commonality is meeting the light. Then my second commonality is hearing God's voice, or hearing a voice in general. And a lot of people that have had near death experiences hear a voice, even warning them before they actually die. Or when they die, they hear a voice saying, look, it's not your time. You have to go back. Or there are many messages that can be heard. Then the third commonality is visiting the lobby of heaven. You actually reach heaven, but you are not allowed to pass beyond a certain boundary. So two of the people who I interviewed called it the lobby of heaven, actually 3, and I gave it that name, visiting the lobby of heaven. The fourth commonality is meeting Jesus, angels, or any other form of divinity. The fifth commonality is having a life review. This is very transformative. The sixth one is getting the chance to return, or you can either be told that you have to return, or they can ask you, do you want to return or do you want to stay? The other is glimpsing the future. And sometimes they show you the future. What would happen if you go back? What would happen if you don't go back? The eighth commonality is receiving a mission. A lot of people are sent back to spread the word that death is not the end. And the ninth commonality is having a transformation. This is really common. People come back transformed. And most of them, when they come back, they spend years before they understand it and before they start sharing it. In average, it's between 7 and 10 years. I don't know what happened with my camera.
Me neither. That was interesting.
Well, you can.
Well,
share.
we can still talk. So could you the idea?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't want to break you up.
No, don't worry. I think that's basically it. I try to interview people and also write about what I have personally found out about these people. I know that other people they write NDE books based on what they find on the internet or summaries, from the big ones. But I don't. I want to stand out.
Yes. No, I love interviewing near-death experiencers.
Yeah, I noticed you've interviewed basically all the great ones.
Yes, I've been doing this for 7 years, so
Oh yeah, congratulations.
as a volunteer. So okay, so I have a question for you to answer that might help a lot of people in the audience. about life review, because when people talk about their experience, and that seems to be a big part of the change that they experience when they come back, is once they had that life review, they aren't afraid to live full out when they come back. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Okay. I've interviewed many people who have had near-death life reviews, but the commonality that I found is that people not only get to relive their life, but also the lives of those that were with him. Not completely, but for example, if I treated someone bad or wrong, okay, if I made someone suffer, when I have my near death, my life review, I will relive the moment when I was treating that person wrong, okay? But I will also feel everything from the perspective of that other person. So when you realize that you are not judged by your accomplishments or what you did in life, I did this, I did that. No, you are basically judged by the way you treat others.
Yeah.
So that really affected me.
Me
Because
too.
I said, I thought, that I was doing my duty by becoming a writer and publishing and all that. I don't know what's going on with my camera.
That's okay. Okay.
But you're not judged by your accomplishments. It doesn't matter if you're president of the United States. It doesn't matter if you're a waiter, or it doesn't matter if you are a millionaire or poor. You are judged by the way you treat others.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and
It's fantastic.
that's really transformative.
Well, also, I mean, you've written books on Eckhart Tolle and the Zen. You've gone to every religion, and I think that thought process is in every religion
Yes,
somewhere.
it's the
But
golden rule.
maybe not the Hebraic. The Judaism and Christianity have more about a fearful God and those consequences.
Well, Jesus said, "Do not do to others what you don't want others to do to you."
Right.
So,
But I think that once you realize that you're judging you, and that judgment, that's the whole idea of being able to forgive yourself and others. It's not just forgiving them and projecting it out there, right?
well, yes, that really transformed me when I started interviewing people. I realized how bad I treated others, and I started noticing each time I treated someone wrong, I would rectify. And it's a lesson that we all need to learn. And it will make a better world if we all do that. And
That's
I also think that it's when people come back. For example, I know an ex-cop who, after he had a life review, he stopped being a cop and now he helps homeless people. And they most people, when they come back after having one of these life reviews, they start helping others.
that's right.
So
Service.
they become, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, but they become true Christians. That's what my conclusion is. It doesn't matter what religion they belong to. Once they have a life review and they start treating others better, they are actually better Christians.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, this is about us evolving to a new awareness as a species of humans. And
Yeah.
the age of Aquarius, we're supposedly going to a peaceful time, and it's a little rocky road right now as we get there. But this is what, if more people knew what you and I have experienced, or the the gems of wisdom that are available in all of these stories, the near-death experiencers, the spiritually transformative experiencers, the prophets, if you want to call them, or the deities. So much information is out there that if we focus on what we want and the world we want to see full of love, then we can make totally different decisions about reality.
Well, I want to thank you for inviting me. Thank you for this opportunity, Kathy. I really would like to have another talk with you and learn about your experiences.
Sure, of course. Well, AJ, I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you, and if they might want to be interviewed by you or work with you. What are the best ways? I have been putting your I put your Grapevine book link in, and I've had your banner up. Let me put your banner up.
My email is ajparbooks@gmail.com. ajparbooks@gmail.com. That's the best way. Also, I have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. You can find me AJ PARR, and I can certainly help whoever needs help writing a book, or if you want to be interviewed and appear in my channel. My channel is called AJ PARR Spiritual Journalist in the news. So you can simply go to YouTube and write AJ PARR, and you will find my channel. Wonderful. And that's basically how you can get hold of me. I'm very open. Please write.
Oh, that's great. And you guys, you can see you're going to get a lot of nurturing as you write your book, which is really the important part of publishing, especially your first book, is it's your baby. And so I want you to see the work that AJ's done. He's got his own Amazon page with all of those publications on it, and again, they're in both language. So you have the benefit of possibly having your book in Spanish as well as English, right?
Yes, right. Well, basically in English.
Basically in English. Well, thank you so much, AJ. I'm so happy to meet you. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you in person.
No, we will sometime.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, I just didn't get to go this year, but next year I'll start planning for it now.
Okay.
So thank you, AJ.
Well, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for everyone who wrote a comment, and
and please
you know where to find me.
Please share, everyone, because you can see this information is perfectly suited for the times, and it will help you wake up to your divinity and your power. So thank you, everyone. Bye, AJ.
God bless you.